So this is our apex panel. Patu, if you will hold that up for a moment. So I'm going to talk about this. This is probably one of the coolest things, one of the things I'm most excited about that we've introduced over the last few months. So everybody familiar with tough rib? Raise your hands. Wow. Okay, 95. A lot of people know about tough rib. So tough rib is the most popular metal roofing system in America. 3 foot wide, custom cut to length, 5 ribs. Apex panel has 4 ribs. It looks a lot like standing seam. Striations instead of minor ribs, taller or thinner seams and more tight seams. And it's the same price as tough rib. We manufacture this here in Cleveland. It's the same price. It's the same production speed. Whether it's for a home, post-frame building kit, this is a unique system. So we have sample boards available. I would encourage you, if you're quoting tough rib and you're wondering how much the cost difference is, there is no cost difference. This can give you a competitive advantage over whoever is quoting tough rib but does not offer this. Or if you don't have to say, okay, it's tough rib versus this. So there's always going to be an opportunity to upsell standing seam. That's twice the cost. Not as common on post frame, but this product is just looks incredible. This is in our matte ULG matte black finish. So there again, trying to find ways to help you differentiate your services. ULG matte black, it's more of a matte finish. What's great is in 29 gauge, it's the same price as our standard colors. So we still have the HD black with the texture that has a higher cost. So don't get those confused. But there again, if you're trying to find ways to differentiate what you offer, I believe it's 5 colors that we offer in ULG matte finishes. And you'll see that in your literature. And we also have color decks. So if you're trying to really differentiate what that looks like compared to the regular black, that's something to keep in mind too. As always, we're going to make sure to square to the eave. These are installed very similarly to tough rib. So again, 1 screw next to each rib. And I would say every 2 foot up, but in this case, it's every purlin. So it's not necessarily 2 foot for that first one. Worry about the purlins. To make sure you hit those, a lot of times you can take, mark right where the last purlin is at next to it, mark right next to the last panel. That way you have a line to go off of. So when your purlins are covered up by your panel, you still know where that line needs to go. So making sure you have a consistent line for those interior screws that you may not be able to see once you get that panel placed down. So keep in mind, this is a purlin that's on edge. It's 1.5 inches. It's harder to hit than a 2x4 that's not on edge. So it's a little more important that you have some flexibility. You don't have to hit the very exact center of that purlin. But it's harder to hit the center of that purlin than it is a flat 2x6.
Those panels come in 29 gauge?
Those come in 29 and 26 gauge. So anything we can make in tough rib, it uses the same coil. It's the same price on the panels, trim, everything.
Does the corrugation take away from the oil peeling? Is what you're supposed to do?
Yeah, the corrugation, if you go with a completely flat pan, just like standing seam, you have a risk of oil canning. We don't make that in flat pan. So that's roll form. On the same high speed line, our tough rib is a double decker. It makes tough rib with striations default so you don't have that flat oil canning, but still gives you a really great look. And again, that product is not limited to post frame buildings, homes, anything, any type of situation you use tough rib on. Great product for that as well. So again, a 3-foot coverage. Those ribs are 12-inch on center instead of 9 inches. One thing when he didn't think about is technically have 4 ribs instead of 5. It'll actually install a minute faster than tough rib because if you put one next to each rib, by the time you lap them, you have 3 screws per panel per every 2 foot up approximately. So just an added benefit of having those wider, more standing seam like spacing, but with a through fastener gasket screw installation. While they work through some of these panels, does anyone have any questions? And one thing I'd encourage you as well, when we get through, just feel free to stop, take a look. Noah is probably able to answer a lot of the questions I have head knowledge of. He has experience, so there's a difference. So keep that in mind, as we'll both be glad to help fill in any gaps that we can. And then just answer any questions that you have. So again, this other half of the building is going to be more representative of open frame kit. So as you think about the difference, and again, one of the benefits is you don't have to start with a full enclosed building. If you have somebody that doesn't want to spend what it takes to enclose, they don't have to start off with enclosed. They can start off with an O-frame frame kit like this. It'll still cover what's under it. And where they're ready to enclose it, they can do so. Whether that be because of what their needs are at that time or just their budget. And what are they ready to work out money-wise at that point. Again, they're right now for demonstration purposes, they're tacking this in place. Again, if you look and see they're not hitting next to each rib, we're not planning on this blowing away. We're just trying to show you the basic, most important things of a post-frame building kit. So if you look at our, whether it be the installation for a post-frame or for a traditional metal roof installation, just make sure you still follow those same procedures, even though we're trying to keep this going for speed. Don't skip every third screw, fasten every third screw in a real situation. Y'all know that mostly, I hope. But just for those of y'all that don't know what we're doing on that side, we're making sure we have good representation while trying to keep the speed going. In this situation, the panel has already been cut off to allow for that gable rake. But typically that's what you're going to have to do unless your overhangs just fall just right. Your very last panel will have to be ripped. The gentleman that won the turbo shear Highly recommended tool for any type of post-frame building kit or siding of any type. I helped a few years back. I helped in Norway to convert a barn to a church, and one of the things they're doing is putting metal siding, and they were trying to match the soffit purlins with the panels. And I had a turbo shear in my suitcase, and if we had not had that, I guarantee there'd been a lot more bloody fingers and a lot less nice looking cuts. But those turbo shears, when you get into gable cuts, door cuts, window cuts, attaches to a cordless drill, very quick, makes nice cuts. When I left, I just left the tool with them because they had more work going, and there wasn't anything like that in Norway. So they're all like, "Wow, this is the best thing ever." So the turbo shear, whether it's for roofing or siding, definitely highly recommended for those details. Anytime you're working with straight cuts, angle cuts, small cuts, you're still going to need some good 10 snips, but turbo shear will make your job a lot less painful and make it a lot faster as well. So again, the same thing is they're going to square that panel with the eave. You don't want to square your panels with your rake because you want to make sure your eave is what your panels will follow. So if you install it with your rake and there's any kind of give, you want your cap to cover that. You want your panel to be overhang typically 1.5 inches based on the eave. A couple more techniques you can use. We talked about getting those fasteners to hit that roof purlin. Another technique you can use, because you have access to the last screw as a reference point, and you can see the purlin on the open end, is you can also just fasten those two and then pop a line after you're done and fill in all the rest. You just want to make sure you're falling between those two screws when you do that, just so you can, instead of eyeballing it, it's really nice to make sure to hit that 1.5 inches accurately. You can pop some lines as well and just install those later. There's just different techniques, whether you install them as you're going, in which you need a good reference point to do that, and just eyeballing it, or you're installing the far right and far left, and then just popping lines after that. So in this case, it's going to be an open frame. You're not worried about in-wall trim or how far up that panel goes. Having it go up farther under the main roof is actually a benefit. Again, we're not talking about an enclosed representation on these two walls versus adding wall girts and panels and trim to make sure you're flashing that out and sealing it tight and stopping blowing rain from getting in between. So the next piece they're going to install is a corner trim. So a small outside corner trim. If your rib falls within a specific distance, this works great. 95% of the time it does. If for whatever reason you've installed starting from this end, and when you get to the other end, your rib is just at that one perfect wrong spot, we can also make a custom wide flashing that helps go past that rib to make sure that that rib does not jack up the angle on your trim or have you trying to do something that you look at for years and like, why did I do that? So just custom, slightly wider corner trim to go a little bit past that rib, another couple inches, or just even another inch into the step back down. What we're not doing here, but definitely is important, is a butyl tape, like caulk on a roll. You apply it to the bottom side of that flange on the corner. Get ready, know where you're going to put it, peel off the wax paper, stick it down, acts as a gasket. Highly recommended, but again, if we did that, we wouldn't be able to reuse that trim or panel. It wouldn't come back off easily. Would you mind giving me something to drink? Some Coke or something. Food isn't here yet, is it? Or can you ask if food is here? Okay. So again, an easier way to do it might be to worry about the soffit and fascia first, but in a real world scenario, you're trying to get in the dry. So again, install your roof, get your corner trim. If it does rain, at least it's going to keep your water off your pad, off your slab, off your gravel, off your dirt, whatever it is. Does anyone have any questions while they install this small side corner?
So with the Apex panel, you guys have all of the like foam gaskets for sealing up edges, everything that you have for tough ribs?
Yes, sir. So Jim was asking, do we have the same sealers options for Apex? We do. So whether that's inside closure at the bottom, so just like tough rib, we have one profile to fit that panel just perfectly. Outside closure at the top, same thing. We have one profile to fit that perfectly. For venting, most people use FlexiVent because it's universal. So that will work for either one. So inside, outside. And then all the trim is exactly the same trim. So there again, another benefit is a lot of the most popular trim that you see here we stock. So ridge cap, corner trim, 1.5 by 3.5. A lot of the J channel, we stock a lot of those items. So when you talk about speed of being able to, whether it be a new project, you left something off, all of our standard colors, we're going to have all those stock trims, and they work for both. I think the only difference at the end of the project with Apex versus Tough Rib is on a decent sized project, you might end up with one extra bag of screws if they figured it like they did Tough Rib, just because you have one less rib. So it's a little bit faster because of the one less rib. And so if it's decent size, if they figure the fastener is the same as our panel, it's still 4 ribs. But a lot of times if it's converting from Tough Rib to Apex, they just change the panel and it's updated versus so you might end up having an extra bag of screws left on a project that you're doing, or you could go and have them take it off if you feel it's a decent sized project already. But everything else is priced and the setup will be the same. Lead times will be the same, etc. So what you'll notice is the eave and the corner don't cover the entire fascia. So that is why we figure a fascia board separately. And if you're figuring the Craftsman one-piece fascia to soffit, that covers it by itself. If you're figuring if you're not, if it's going to be open frame, you just want to cover your fascias. Usually that would be a 1/2 by 5.5 to cover that. If you're covering your soffit, then it's going to depend on your method. Like I said, for this purpose, because they went with an extended board, I failed to figure a long enough eave trim. So just something to keep in mind is the method of fastening for a soffit really depends on the technique. So that might be an area where if you want to cover down further, you may or may not need a longer fascia board or eave trim to help bridge that gap. So ridge cap, this is our standard 12-inch ridge cap, conveniently in a very long length, which we can provide. In most cases, these are going to be, I believe it's 10'3", which gives you enough to help lap them nicely, is what we stock. In most cases, 10 foot could be, but generally 10'3" for laps. So you'd have one lap somewhere on this roof. For convenience sake and speed sake, we made it in one long shot. You're usually going to have to lap those 3 inches, sometimes 6 inches, depending on what your preference is and the roof. Just kind of what you're looking to do with it. But just lap at least 2 or 3 inches. And again, the same thing, that would be where we offer the Apex outside closures to seal that off as well. So again, this other half of the building is going to be more representative of open frame kit. So as you think about the difference, and again, one of the benefits is you don't have to start with a full enclosed building. If you have somebody that doesn't want to spend what it takes to enclose, they don't have to start off with enclosed. They can start off with the open frame kit like this. It'll still cover what's under it. And where they're ready to enclose it, they can do so. Whether that be because of what their needs are at that time or just their budget. And what are they ready to fork out money-wise at that point. So again, the same thing is they're going to square that panel with the eave. You don't want to square your panels with your rake because you want to make sure your eave is what your panels will follow. So if you install it with your rake and there's any kind of give, you want your cap to cover that. You want your panel to be overhang typically 1.5 inches based on the eave. A couple more techniques you can use. We talked about getting those fasteners to hit that roof purlin. Another technique you can use, because you have access to the last screw as a reference point, and you can see the purlin on the open end, is you can also just fasten those two and then pop a line after you're done and fill in all the rest. You just want to make sure you're falling between those 2 screws when you do that, just so you can, instead of eyeballing it, it's really nice to make sure to hit that 1.5 inches accurately. You can pop some lines as well and just install those later. There's just different techniques, whether you install them as you're going in which you need a good reference point to do that, and just eyeballing it, or you're installing the far right and the far left, and then just popping lines after that. So in this case, it's going to be an open frame. You're not worrying about in-wall trim or how far up that panel goes. Having it go up farther under the main roof is actually a benefit. Again, we're not talking about an enclosed representation on these two walls versus adding wall girts and panels and trim to make sure you're flashing that out and sealing it tight and stopping blowing rain from getting in between.